What's the best kind of petty revenge? Well, the kind that involves post-it notes, of course. We'll get into that story in just a bit, but first, she charged me $1,200 in cleaning fees, so I cleaned her reviews. I rented a small event space for a surprise party. The place looked nice online, decent price, and the host seemed polite enough until after the event. Out of nowhere, she hit me with a $1,200 deep cleaning bill. Said we left the place unusable, which was wild because we barely used the kitchen and left it cleaner than we found it. I asked for proof. She sent blurry photos of trash, not even ours. I appealed through the booking platform. Denied. She was clearly running a side hustle, scam a few hundred off each booking and hope no one fights too hard. So I did my own cleaning. I found her business on every platform I could. Yelp, Google, Facebook, and event site, and left detailed, calm, 1-star reviews with photos from our event showing how spotless the place was when we left. Turns out, I wasn't the only one. My reviews picked up traction. Others came forward with the same scam, and within weeks, her rating dropped from 4.8 to 2.9. Last I checked, she's offering 50% off all bookings. Guess someone's trying to clean up her reputation. Con artist at its finest. It's a shame that it took this long for what she was doing to be exposed, but I'm glad you did it, OP. Stuff like this is scummy and needs to be shut down. FreeDO Minic replied, I love this because it's not at all petty. You did the right thing. You didn't just lie down and accept a $1,200 loss, which is thievery. You did what was the expected normal use of these sites. You helped stop a scammer from taking money that might have upended someone's life in the future. You got the rare opportunity to give someone their just rewards, and you did the dang thing. Did it right. Also, hey everybody, my name is Brendan, and if you guys enjoy these ProRevenge videos, it would be amazing if you liked the video and commented down below if you're listening to our podcast. Now then, our next story is, Destroyed My Boss's Career. A few years back, I got hired as a supervisor for a local government. I was to help supervise about 10 employees. Above me was a manager. He was a terrible leader and would often yell at people, make slurs, give impossible tasks or deadlines. On my third day in, he yelled at me to, quote, learn how to do my effing job in front of the employees. He made snide remarks to other employees that he was going to terminate me on probation. He demanded that I keep a communication log with every task he assigns me and updates it as I complete them. He also chastised me my first weekend for not having any questions emailed to him by the end of the week. He told me he expects me to send 3 questions every week until I'm off probation. The next week, I sent him 3 questions as required, and he replied back to look up the answers myself. He was out to get me. He would give a task, then another task, then ask me why I didn't get the first one done. I also found out that he rode the old supervisor that way until he got enough dirt on him to terminate him. I decided it was war. I kept a log of every perceived policy violation, broken rule, inappropriate comment, and people who witnessed it. I also engaged other supervisors and employees from other departments. After 28 days of employment, I was ready to quit. I kept a resignation letter in my car, and that gave me the power I needed to press on. After 28 days, I filed a formal complaint with HR. At that time, I convinced the other supervisor to do the same. After that, several employees filed complaints, and a group complaint was filed. HR investigated the complaints, and the manager was placed on administrative leave. The investigation concluded that the manager did violate numerous policies, created a hostile work environment, and he ended up resigning. Since then, he's been burning bridges at every employer, 3 so far, and went from a manager of 15 employees in a great pension making $95K a year to a low-level labor employee making about $25 an hour in a hole-in-the-wall facility. To be fair, he created his own problems. I just helped HR see it. This guy sounds like a grade A dirtbag, and once again, karma's a boomerang, comes full circle. How you treat people will eventually come back to bite you, so glad to hear that he is fallen on hard times. Feisty Irish Wench commented, there's a guy in my husband's job that behaves similarly. The bigger boss reassigned him to 4 direct report employees in dealing with subcontractors. Everyone is just waiting for him to pee off the subcontractors just the right way with his vitriol and get himself terminated. Our next story is, she erased us from her wedding, so I'm erasing her from mine. When my brother got married, his bride, now my sister-in-law, had very specific expectations. She wanted everyone in the family to wear their wedding colors, and we all did. People flew in from out of state. Everyone made an effort to make her feel celebrated. The day before the wedding, she made some offhanded but clearly pointed remarks about how our side of the family never takes anything seriously, and she wasn't expecting us to take this seriously either. The comments made their rounds, and feelings were hurt before the wedding even began. But we still showed up, looked great, and participated. Fast forward to getting the wedding photos and video. Not a single photo of our side of the family was posted. Not one. In the entire 3-minute highlight reel, no faces from our family except a 3-second clip of my parents with the bride and groom. The rest of us, it's like we never existed. I texted her cordially and asked if she could send me the pictures with just our siblings, since none had been posted. She responded that we never took those pictures. That's wild because I remember helping people adjust corsages for them. She doubled down on the gaslighting. I gave it 6 months and asked again. She suddenly had no idea what I was talking about. Fine. Here's where the petty revenge comes in. I'm getting married in 8 days. I've been engaged for 6 months and planning this moment since she tried to erase us. I hired a great photographer and videographer. What she doesn't know is that the videographer has a secret mission. Make it look like she's getting all the attention. Track her, hover near her like she's the star of the show. She will feel so seen. And then, the final cut? She won't appear for even 1 second, just like she made sure we didn't. I didn't even invite her originally. Word must have gotten out because she cornered me at a family dinner and said, "Unfortunately, I have to work the day before and after your wedding, but I should still be able to make it." I was so stunned, I just said, "That's fine. The Airbnb is booked whether you're there or not." So now she's coming. To cope, I spelled her name wrong on the wedding invite on purpose. That was my first move. The video blackout will be my last. Not asking for advice, not asking if it's too mean. It's not. It's exactly fair. Happy to finally talk about it freely. Well, we need the follow-up, the sequel, the deets. Come on now, you can't just leave us hanging like that. I want to see how she reacted. Boo. One word hog 3063 replied, "You didn't ask your brother for the photos of your side of the wedding? I get the petty revenge of not having her in any of the videos and not putting photos of her in the album, but at least ask your brother for the photos. He likely knows where they are." And our next story is, Time Teaches a Lesson. I was a teacher at a local school and had a great relationship with all my colleagues, until I discussed a school-related issue with a member of the school's board of trustees outside of school. Basically, the conversation with the board member was simple. I told them of an issue at school. Classroom taps weren't working, and as I had been told by 2 other teachers that the board would have no chance of us teachers attending/participating in a planned after-school community function if the taps were not fixed. A minor thing, really, but I could see the taps being fixed quickly and the community event being a success. Win-win, right? However, I didn't realize that I'd committed the cardinal sin of actually raising an issue with the board rather than complaining about it forever and doing nothing. During the emergency meeting that was called, I confessed happily, saying it was me who spoke to the board, and I hadn't mentioned any names. This didn't go down so well. A teacher, let's call her Princess, absolutely crapped her pants, yelled, screamed, and stormed out of the meeting, trailing a colorful amount of expletives behind her. Princess then took herself to the principal and yelled and screamed at him before storming out of the building to wait for her sidekick to drive her home because poor Princess couldn't drive. The whole situation shocked me, and I checked with an employment lawyer to see if I had done wrong. Legally, the ball was all mine, so I wrote a letter of resignation and got into school early the next morning to tidy my class and leave a plan for a reliever as I had decided I wasn't going to work for the rest of the week. While sorting my stuff out, Princess and her chauffeur entered the hallway and had a loud, animated conversation about me and how Princess couldn't give a flying freak about me and would make my life living heck. In my resignation letter, I cited the grounds for a personal grievance against Princess and informed the principal that I would follow this up if I left the school. Princess and I never spoke a word to each other again, unless absolutely necessary. A few years rolled by and a quiet status quo grew. Nothing was said, and in general, the parents at the school had absolutely no idea of this silent feud. Payback. I was lucky enough to have my child at the same school, and it was an unwritten rule that teachers could choose their child's class for the next year. So yes, of course, I decided to put my child in Princess's class. Why? Because she was actually a great teacher, just a crap adult. I also knew the leadership team were between a rock and a hard place. They knew I would take things further if my choice of classroom was denied, and they knew that if Princess refused to accept my child into her class, I would push personal grievance against her. Princess was freaked. She had to take my child into her class. She couldn't say anything wrong to my child, and she knew everything that happened in her classroom would find its way back to me via my child. Princess resigned on the last day of the school year. Technically not allowed due to teachers having to give 8 weeks notice, and I smiled. I played a tactful game over a few long years and won. I continued to teach at the same school for many more years. I might post another revenge story about another teacher if this one goes down well. Look, I'll just say this, petty though it may be, as long as the best interests of the children at that school aren't being compromised by this feud, I'm cool with it. Do what you gotta do behind the scenes, but always look out for the kids first. Our next story is, the time a supervisor tried to throw me under the bus, but I had receipts. This happened in 2015, during my first year of teaching in special education, USA. I don't know if anyone else here works in SPED, but if you do, you're probably familiar with the difficult process of obtaining a one-on-one para for a student. So I had this kiddo, we'll call him Jay. Jay had some unsafe behaviors as a kindergartner, such as eloping from the school and into the neighborhood. It was terrifying to say the least, and a big safety concern. So I spoke with my supervisor, showed him the data, and he agreed this student definitely needed one-on-one support. My supervisor, Mr. C, worked with me for a couple weeks on the safety net process, getting a one-on-one. It was a lot of loops and jumps and saying the right thing in very specific ways, but I got it completed. I sent it to Mr. C for the last final review and was met with silence. I emailed him after a day, because we're all busy in this field. No worries, but more silence. I called his office and left a voicemail with the secretary, but more silence. I tried to get a hold of him for 2 weeks, with growing worry because the deadline was approaching, but I never heard back from him. After the due date passed, he finally messaged me and said I didn't reach out to him with the final copy. The one-on-one wasn't approved. I was ticked. So I gathered copies of all the emails, the phone calls, every attempt I made to reach out to him, and sent it to his boss, Mr. B, head of SPED services. I also included Mr. C's last email. A couple of days later, Mr. C sent me a formal letter of apology through our district mailing system. Mr. B granted me an extension and filed the paperwork himself, and also granted me an emergency one-on-one while the paperwork processed. At the end of the year, Mr. C was fired from his position. I doubt it was just me, but I'm sure my receipts had something to do with his removal as a SPED supervisor. And that's my story. I was telling it to a coworker here, and he said I should post it under petty revenge. Yeah, and once again, this is why you need to keep a paper trail and receipts for everything. It's obvious what this supervisor was doing. He suddenly comes out of the woodwork after all these attempts of contacting after the deadline has passed. Now he wants to write you back and respond. So yeah, what a jerk, very lazy, and paper trail buried him. New boss Sterone replied, I heard a great story from my days in the military. An enlisted man keeps sending an official application, packet for special training, promotion, or commendation. Something like that. Someone in personnel keeps losing it. It's pretty difficult to put these together sometimes. Your permanent record since enlisting, formal recommendations with signatures from high-up people, etc. When the guy got fed up, he made 10 copies of the application materials. When he had to get them signed, he'd ask them to sign all 10. Originals only, no copies, and explain why. Eventually, an officer way above his level told him, if one gets lost, have them call me and I'll help look for it. He delivered the application by hand to the person he suspected of losing it. When he gave it to him, he said, by the way, I have 9 more, and Jen Smith said he'd help look for it if it got lost. It did not get lost. Urgent 45 replied, frickin' pack, man. I was a cherry back in '86, and they managed to lose my official leave forms. My platoon sergeant walked over and got in their lazy faces. They finally found it on someone's desk just sitting there, signed and everything. I almost missed my flight. Our next story is, showed the true colors of my perfect mommy blogger, sister-in-law. So, long story short, my former sister-in-law was bad-mouthing me on speakerphone to my then partner. I later called her out on it and she got extremely defensive, deflective, and passive-aggressive. Throughout the whole text conversation, I tried to redirect it back to healthy adult communication. Sister-in-law shot back at me with a nasty text, saying that because my family disowned me, I have no right to talk about communication since it didn't work out. In her words, it was laughable that I could give advice. She immediately blocked me to get the last word in. Now, this was extreme religious abuse and control. When I decided to stop following the faith, that's when I got disowned. It was a really hard time for me. She knew all about it because I trusted and confided in her. It just so happens that she's an aspiring content creator, and since having a kid, has been trying to brand herself as the perfect Christian mom, living a healthy, positive lifestyle while selling overpriced MLM supplements. And so, I posted a screenshot of her weaponizing my trauma on my IG story with a clown emoji over her pic. You can see my reply, stating it was a cheap shot, that my family issues come from religious abuse and authoritarianism, and that everything I've learned about communication has come from years of psychotherapy. Side note, I actually have more followers than her, and I'm not even remotely interested in becoming a brand, but that was just the cherry on top. Though I was unable to tag her, I used her name when calling her out, so those who know will know. I made it into a series of posts about reclaiming my narrative. Because I have lots of support from the ex-Muslim community, they started reposting and cheering me on, as well as friends and I posted their screenshots to me with their words of encouragement. Honestly, it was so heartwarming, so safe to say I got my little petty revenge. Apparently, she had been freaking out that all of our mutuals saw it. She doesn't have much of a following besides friends and family, sending frantic texts to my ex, screenshots, and stated I declared war. And just that reaction alone felt like the perfect karmic justice. You know, if everybody showed who they really are as a person on the internet and not just the highlights, I think the internet would be a much, much darker place than it already is. So exposing her for who she is, most people just can't take the truth about themselves. Electrical Boot 2942 replied, "Woo, ex-Muslim here. You get that hypocrite B word. I see you. I hear you. Our trauma is real and unique." Our next story is, that time a neighborhood kid got even on the jerk delivery guy. This one happened a few years ago. Our mail carrier changed and the new guy, call him Dave, was an absolute jerk. Trod on flower beds, rude to people, but the real kicker was Dave would pee in a bottle, and if he was in a bad mood, that bottle would be thrown in someone's garden. If you tell him to throw the bottle in the trash, he'd throw it at you. Dave was the son of the postmaster, Bob, an older guy of the boys will be boys mindset, and best friends with the local sheriff, Steve. If you talk to Bob about his son, it'd be excuses. He's a foster kid, he's had a hard life, and on and on. If you went to Steve, then it would be boys will be boys. Dave was in his 30s, or Postmaster Bob is dealing with it personally. One day in the middle of summer, the neighborhood kids got to see Mailman Dave being his usual sunny self. Seems Dave was mean to them too. The kids were out playing with their water pistols, and one of them had this real high power thing which sent the water a good 10 feet or more, and the kid who owned it, Oren, was a great shot. It's a lovely day, 30 degrees, sun, and I'm out back putting out dinner. Suddenly, there's this blood-curdling scream from Dave, and the whole neighborhood comes running to see what happened. Turns out, Oren had loaded his water pistol with one of Dave's pee bottles and topped it off with a can of Red Bull. So now Dave was covered in this disgusting, sticky, pee and sugar mess, which was starting to stink to high heaven. One of my neighbors offered to let Dave use her shower. He ran off to another house, grabbed the hose, and turns it on himself. So now Dave is sticky, pee-soaked, and wet. He ditched everything in the street and ran off. Steve and Bob went walking the street that afternoon. We'd all not seen anything, of course. Bob had the bright idea of asking Oren, who told him exactly what we all thought of Dave and how he was acting, in the way only a bright-eyed 12-year-old can. Bob and Steve cornered Oren's dad. "Is this your son? Do you know what he did?" Without missing a beat, Oren's dad fired back, "Well, Sheriff Steve, don't you always say boys will be boys?" We never saw Dave again, but Oren's birthday party was huge that year. God bless that kid. Boys will be boys, what does that even mean? Is there just this universal assumption out there that all male children pee in bottles and just do disgusting things like that? I mean, come on, we're better than that. Not to say that doesn't happen, but we're not all like that. HissyFit64 replied, "Neighbor kids with squirt bottles are a sign of summer. I lived in a neighborhood with a pack of kids that all got super soakers and would ambush people. I got nailed a couple times and made an agreement with them. I asked them not to soak me if I was walking towards the bus stop because I was on my way to work and it was a huge hassle to get soaked. But if I was walking towards my house, I was fair game. So I'd be walking home and I'd see little heads lurking behind cars, hiding behind fences, usually accompanied by a massive amount of giggling. I'd pretend not to see them and stroll along and they'd pop out, soak me, and run. It actually felt pretty good because my office was sweltering and summers in Chicago can be insanely hot." Ritzy Ditzy 92 replied, "Grown-ups like you are the best. Explained the important lesson of time and place and made sure kids could have fun later. Also, the giggle giveaways are my favorite. I love playing dumb to them." Our next story is, if my boss is a horrible toxic person, should I tell my boss he's been spelling the company name wrong for over a year in his signature and his regards is spelled Righards? My boss was heralded as our savior when he was hired, and he's been here for slightly over a year. Since he's been at our company, he's done nothing but create a fear-based, controlling culture where every speak-up is met with harsh punishments. Lots of people who've been here a long time have left, and those who haven't are thinking about it. He's also aloof, quick to judge, and acts before understanding. He thinks quick and decisiveness is key to looking good. So it's been a year since he's been using the wrong company name in his signature, and his regards is spelled Reg Hards. Nobody's dared to speak up to him, but everyone knows. I've been a long-term employee here, and I like what we've built, and I hate to have one person ruin it all. Should I just tell him? Petty revenge time. I sent an anonymous email to our board of directors, and they told him instead. There's a serious loss of credibility for him now, and he's scrambling to find out who whistle blew. I'm just keeping my head down and pretending to work hard. Well, either he doesn't know about the typo because he didn't look, or he legitimately just doesn't know how to spell. Either way, not good, needed to be cleaned up one way or another, and that just kind of is what it is. Not Lava Tube replied, I wouldn't be surprised if someone helped him set up his new email signature as a prank. Back in my college days, whenever someone left their computer logged in and unattended, they'd get pranked like that. One person changed the autocorrect to misspell the professor's name. That particular professor required his name at the top right corner of all assignments, and he was known for being a real jerk about minor mistakes, so he was bound to notice. Gollumping with glee commented, my first corporate job was like that, but they generally did really obvious one-time things, not things that might slip through unnoticed for months or years. Things like inviting the whole team out for drinks, on me. No one ever collected, but we knew when we saw it that someone must have left their computer unlocked. Our next story is The Unforgettable Birthday. My ex was unfaithful to me, and I found out just a week before his birthday. Obviously, I didn't say anything. I organized his party as if nothing had happened. Guests, food, decoration, everything. I treated him like a king. On the day of the party, just at the time of the toast, I asked everyone to be quiet and said, I want to toast to him for being such a good actor, so convincing, so affectionate, with several people at the same time. Happy birthday, unfaithful. I left my glass on the table, and I left. Once again, I would love more details, more tea on this. It's a great story. I don't think that any form of cheating should go unpunished, but I just want to know the reaction. What happened? Our next story is The Revenge of the Post-it. My office partner, Juan, had an annoying habit. He always left his things on my desk, especially the messy papers that he didn't want to order in his own space. For weeks I tolerated it, but in the end I decided it was time to do something. One day, when I realized that I had left a lot of papers on my desk again, I had an idea. I spent the afternoon writing small notes on each of his papers with brightly colored post-its. Each post-it had a message like, please, pitch me up. I'm just a lost role, or I'm waiting for your attention, don't ignore me. The next day, when Juan arrived at the office, he saw that his whole pile of papers was covered with post-its. He spent several minutes reading each one out loud, while everyone in the office laughed. Not only was he embarrassed, but in the end, he quickly picked up everything and apologized to me. Since then, he never left his things on my desk. Well, this was justified. Pretty harmless in the grand scheme of things, but good for a laugh in the office in the afternoon. Good fix. Wine on the Patio replied, I did something similar when I worked on a college campus. Grad students kept borrowing my stapler, tape dispenser, and such to carry off to their offices, but they weren't returning them. I made lost pet posters with a picture of the missing item, naming it Fluffy or some such, saying that the children missed their beloved pet and offering a reward for its return. The items were back by the next day, along with an apology, and everyone had a good laugh. OP replied to that idea is brilliant. I imagine the Fluffy posters stuck all over the faculty, and I can't stop laughing. Sometimes a little creativity and humor is the best way to solve things. I applaud you. The next story is, rearranged every single paper chart before I left. Recently got fired from a toxic job, so I rearranged every single paper chart before I left. I used to work in a small, toxic office where the two guys I worked with were best friends and acted like high school mean girls. If one of them didn't like you, the other didn't either, and surprise, they didn't like me. They were snobby, smug, and made it clear I wasn't part of their little club. While they stood around chatting, I did most of the actual work. This office still used paper charting like actual physical folders. Every day I had to pull, organize, and file charts by hand. It was tedious and ridiculous, but I handled it. Meanwhile, the doctor, aka the owner, was sketchy as heck. He'd write scripts for controlled substances, have me stamp them, and didn't follow any real protocols. Think of a controlled substance pill that's often swapped between college kids or prescribed to people to help them pay attention. He was supposed to make patients come in monthly to get their refills instead. He'd give them a 90-day supply and then act clueless when they came back after a month for more. Not sure how he's still getting away with it. He was dangerously negligent too. Almost had me give penicillin to a patient who was allergic. I caught it just in time, no thanks to him. Anyway, I could tell early on I wasn't going to be there long. One of the guys had a friend about to graduate who'd need a job, aka mine, so they started trying to get me fired. They'd sabotage charts, misfile stuff I'd done, and make it look like I was the problem. I told them I was supporting my family and couldn't afford to lose the job. That didn't stop them. So I started keeping a notebook where I wrote down everything I did, with timestamps. Didn't matter. The doctor was checked out. He fired me 30 minutes before my shift ended, but told me 2 hours earlier to make sure the charts were filed and organized before I left. So I did exactly that. I reorganized every single chart, just not in the way he wanted. I took the A's and put them with the Z's, swapped M's with B's, you name it. Nothing was damaged or thrown away. Clients will not suffer in any way, shape, or form. Just completely out of alphabetical order. Still there, just unusable unless you spent hours digging. A perfect mess. Imagine a perfectly organized deck of cards and then you throw them on the ground and pick them back or shuffle them, but worse. These charts were so well organized, not only was it organized by first and last names, but also the following letters as well, for example. Petty? Sure. Deserved? Absolutely. Do I regret it? Not one bit. I hope it took them forever to fix. Yeah, it really sounds like OP was done dirty here by people that didn't really care much for them, and so why not go out kicking and screaming? If they have the nerve to assign you a task on the day that they plan on firing you, all bets are off. Mother Goose 1957 replied, I was in your shoes once, but my only revenge was getting a better job and then quitting. I had the supervisor from heck. She made it clear that I was not her choice for the job, and subsequent events confirmed she had earmarked my job for one of her friends. There were 2 doctors as well as herself on the interview panel when I applied for the position, and the doctors wanted me, so they overruled her. She kept making false accusations about me not doing my job until it got to the point where, like you, I started keeping a notebook and getting it witnessed and countersigned by the nurses on duty. Eventually, she organized a staff review session with me and one of the doctors where she brought up a number of accusations which I was able to disprove using my notebook. The look on her face was priceless. She sneered at me. You kept a notebook? A bit paranoid, aren't you? And I calmly said, no, I'm not paranoid, and I think the fact that I needed to produce this evidence today demonstrates that. The next story is Nickel and Dime Medical Bill. My child's pediatrician used an incorrect diagnosis code for part of her well child visit. The result of this is that I'm being asked to cover the difference. I work in the field, so have at least an understanding of billing and how your procedures and diagnosis codes have to be matched for insurance to cover the services. It's not a large sum, but I'm certain it's not one I should have to pay. The MD is part of a large, bureaucratic, and opaque hospital system. All parties refuse to correct or even acknowledge the error. Months have passed, and they continue to demand payment for a service that should be fully covered by insurance, and would even be covered now if they just fixed the error. Faced with this immovable object of a bill, I felt very angry and frustrated. I wondered how best to punish the provider, office, and system. I left some bad reviews for the doctor, simply stating the facts. She will make errors that cost you money and refuse to fix them. This didn't provide me with much satisfaction. Thought maybe I'd pay the bill in person with physical nickels and dimes, but this punishes the office staff and I don't have any particular beef with them. Then I figured out I can Apple Pay my bill 5 cents at a time. I know the merchant has to pay a flat fee per transaction, so if they won't budge on this bill, I'll make dang sure it will cost them money rather than making them money. Time to switch back to a smaller, local pet's office while I'm at it. Edit to say, a commenter mentioned batching, which I had not considered. So if you want to take this tactic yourself, only do a small increment once daily, as places with a high volume of payments only push them through daily at most to minimize their per transaction fees. Yeah, this is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Slowly but surely, methodically, just bleeding them dry. Love it. JPal62 replied, in 2013, I had a billing error with a large medical entity, initial CC. Wife is disabled. Billing order was my insurance is primary, Medicare is secondary, Medicaid is tertiary. Person registering kept insisting Medicare is primary. I informed them they were incorrect and would never get paid. 2 years and 4 debt collectors later, the $13,000 bill was considered uncollectible. I refused to pay it, and by the time they tried to bill correctly, it was too old of a bill and my insurance would no longer cover it. I'm very stubborn when it comes to my wife and my wallet. Our next story is my favorite revenge, or at least in my top 5 eventual moments. After reading someone else's petty revenge story about an irate neighbor and a lawn in the 90s, I was reminded of a stunt I pulled, also in the 90s, and also involving a neighbor and lawn. My neighbor at my childhood home was absolutely obsessed with her lawn. Whenever she'd find dog crap on it, she would call animal control and blindly accuse my family. Literally everyone on the street had a dog, but she would just blindly accuse us of it. It was obnoxious. Our other neighbor, who was friendly with both my family and the lawn witch, came and apologized to us. She told us that it was her dog who did it, and she even told the lawn witch the truth and offered to clean it up, but the witch wouldn't relent with my family. One day I came home from work and my brother was hiding in our bushes, at night and in the pitch black. He was effing giddy when I noticed him. He had just bought a laser light pen, which was the newest thing at the time, and he was shining it through the witch's window. It was summer, all her windows were open, so you could hear her shrill voice yelling, "What's that little red light?" Picture Roseanne Barrs yelling at someone angrily at the top of the lungs. That's how it sounded. Brother and I were crying laughing. His 15-year-old mind was hoping they'd think it was the scope light. Nothing came of it other than a good laugh. But then there is another thing, and I'm responsible for it. I can't be sure if it was the same summer, but I think it was. I went out with my boyfriend and a couple of his friends. When they brought me home, my BF's friend decided he needed to pee and was about to relieve himself on my lawn. I told him to F off with that, and if he's got to pee, he can do it on Witch's lawn, and hopefully the ammonia would fry her grass. Instead, he decided to pee in her mailbox. Didn't even need to stand on her precious grass. She had a curbside mailbox. Can you even imagine how that must have smelled in the summer? She ended up getting a new mailbox a while later. Never told my folks about it till years later, but when I did, they weren't all that surprised. They even fondly remembered a short story I wrote in 4th or 5th grade where the lawn witch was the main character. She was an alien in the story, and she was trying to abduct my dog. They saved it. I've seen it. Anyway, years later, the lawn witch had some sort of medical episode and went into a year-plus long coma. When she woke up, she was a new person. She wasn't hateful anymore. It was like she was rebooted or something. But she was so awful before that, and her coma doesn't change 20-plus years of harassment. I don't usually rue new technology, but doorbell cameras are ruining the petty Avengers of the future. Well, it's glad to hear that her life got turned around, obviously not under the best of circumstances, but speaking strictly of the time in the 90s that this took place, when you treat people like that, you deserve a little tinkle in your mailbox. Poopsie Doodler commented, "Sweet, sweet revenge. I also have a funny story about someone changing. My father-in-law was a mean old idiot. He complained about the way anybody did anything. He was the only one who could do anything right. When driving, everyone on the road was an idiot. He must have been very unhappy because he just seemed angry and cranky all the time. Then suddenly he had a stroke. He was in the hospital for a few days and seemed to recover completely. Yet after the stroke, he was the nicest guy. Literally, he was a different person. He was cheerful, helpful, kind. I don't know, but it seems like the stroke damaged the meanie part of his brain. We were all so grateful for that stroke of luck." And he replied to this, "They both had reverse Phineas Gage. Too bad a doctor can't just fill a prescription out for a coma to heal these personalities." Our next story is, maybe don't be nasty to employees you don't have authority over. So this was a few years ago, right after the end of the pandemic. I was working as a grade manager / pastry chef and wanted to change restaurants to shake things up. I ended up in an Italian place in town that seemed like a nice enough place. I didn't try it first, and I now regret that. Now, it's important to understand the weird structure of this particular restaurant. The owner was in his 70s and barely ran anything. We'll call him Tom. He just wanted to run his app station and pay someone else to be head chef. That chef is my mentor. We'll call him Otto. Then there is a sous chef, Keith, and the manager, Janine. Janine had been working line cook shifts in the back due to short staffing and felt that made her our boss, even though she had literally zero authority over the line cooks, let alone the chefs. Now, this restaurant, to put it nicely, has seen better days. Not kitchen nightmares material, but definitely going underwater due to their rapidly aging fan base. Chef Otto was brought in originally as a consultant to revamp the menu and overhaul procedures. He did. Then Janine nagged Tom until he slowly made Otto change it back. Here's the thing, Jay hates change. We've been doing it this way for 20 years. Yeah, and you're in the red. Clearly, things need to change. After a few months, Chef Otto got fed up and moved to another restaurant 40 miles away. Unfortunately, I couldn't follow at the time because of a family situation. We remained in touch, him teaching me a lot of things just through conversations. They brought in a new executive chef, Dud, to take over. Janine helped choose this guy. Why did she want him? Because he was a burnt-out doormat that would do whatever she wanted. Sous Chef Keith and I tried desperately to convince them to stop using recipes that physically, scientifically did not work. But Janine's female dogging continued. Her famous mantra, "It's fine, we've done it for X number of years," slowly driving me mad. Janine is not just stubborn, she's an active bully that did not like it when people told her no. Tom hasn't had passion for much probably since the 70s, so it was easy for her to bully him and get whatever she wanted. Eventually, Keith also got fed up and bounced, leaving me alone to deal with Janine and her beaten down lackeys. Now, the important thing is that, weirdly, Tom actually really liked me. He liked that I was excited by food and wanted to make everything beautiful. This meant he gave me free reign. My station was my kingdom, until the restaurant started opening 7 days a week again. Suddenly, someone else had to run my station when I wasn't there. Guess who? Janine. She'd rearrange my entire, very large station and prep area for the 1 day a week she watched it, then complain when I fixed it. Now, I'm a fan of do what you gotta do to make a station work for you, especially since she's very tall with back pain. I don't mind her setting it up how she needed for service. I just wanted her to put it back when she left. It's just basic respect. If it's not your station, put it back. This war went on for months, Tom trying to have a backbone with her because he didn't want me to leave. Near the end of my stay, he brought in an ACF certified master chef and his apprentice to try again at revamping the menu. The master chef, Andy, did an exquisite job at modernizing and improving procedures. Let's just say that a lot of the methods we used for Janine's precious recipes were ineffective at best. His apprentice, Nina, was a pastry chef who helped me revamp the entire dessert menu. Tom gave the two of us full control. They were beautiful, easy to plate quickly, and absolutely delicious. The only thing pre-made that we had was the gelato. Janine did not like this at all. She went into absolute overdrive, benching constantly, making her old recipes when prepping, hiding ingredients, hiding equipment, the works. One thing that seriously got on mine and Nina's nerves was that she literally wouldn't garnish the plates. At all. She was just too lazy, I guess, or maybe it was another middle finger. I had a kettle soup warmer to keep hot fudge warm during service because I'd go through a number 10 can of the stuff every 2 days. She started hiding it. She's a tall woman, like 6'2", and I'm smaller, like 5'4", so she'd hide it on top of things. Now, because I'm not a 3-year-old, I'd quickly find it and get it down. All the while, she was convinced that Nina was her new best friend. She wasn't. Nina hated her as much as I did, and would tell her where she hid things to gloat. Nina would obviously turn around and either tell me or just go get it. After all this, my final straw arrives. Tom gave me a budget to go and buy new plates for my salads. The old salad plates were admittedly very pretty once, but were very old and beat up. They needed to be replaced regardless. I picked out some new plates. They arrived. They're gorgeous. Tom likes them, even seems a little excited about something for once. I came back from my day off 2 weeks later to find all the new plates in the basement, and all the ratty, beat-up plates they hadn't thrown out yet back on the station. That was it. I don't know why that was my final straw, but it was. I called Chef Otto within 10 minutes of getting to work and asked if he had a spot for me. He asked what happened, and I gave him the whole rundown. He offered me more money and less responsibility so that I could focus more on learning the other kitchen roles that I'd never really gotten to explore. I put in my 2 weeks that day. Tom was not happy with Janine and, for once, actually put his foot down with her. She wasn't allowed near me my whole notice period. I think he was hoping I'd change my mind. Well, time for petty revenge. My final day comes and Janine isn't there. I suddenly have a wicked idea that didn't actually hurt anything. I took all the most vital, high-traffic items and moved them all to the bottommost shelves and drawers. Now, this was a huge station, with drawer fridges and a Pepsi cooler, so you can imagine about how low those lowest shelves and drawers were. Not just the coolers either. I also did the equipment drawers, dry goods, freezers, you name it, and it got a makeover. I unfortunately didn't get to witness my artwork firsthand, but I did hear about it later from the dish guy. He said that he spent days cursing, bending over, and having to reorganize. I never heard boo about it from Tom because he was still mad at her for driving me out, so either he thought she deserved it or didn't believe her. Either way, imagining her spending days having to bend over every couple of minutes definitely scratched the itch of pure frustration that had built up over the 4 months after my chef left. I know this is awfully long for a petty revenge story, but this woman seriously made my job an irritating nightmare every single day. This isn't even all of it, not even scratching the surface. There's so many more stories. Anyone who's interested is welcome to ask. So this actually reminds me of a little feud that I had with my sister growing up. I was always really tall. She was always really short. And so I would if I was being mean or whatever, I would put items up on shelves out of her reach. And in retaliation, she would take items and hide them in these low places where I'd have to bend over and crouch down to get them. So, it's push and pull, give and take. But yeah, no, this is a funny revenge story. X-Fei-Fei replied, "Did you ever hear complaints for the kitchen from customers? What's the nastiest thing Janine ever said that you know of? How did servers handle her? I find bullies like that so fascinating. If any other stories come to mind, please do tell." And he replied to this, "The servers didn't handle her. She was so busy playing Master Chef that she basically abandoned the FOH. 2 of the longtime servers ran everything. She was out there, actually being a FOH manager for 2 months when we somehow had enough people. Even then, she'd pitch a fit about changed recipes all the time. Customers? Not that I remember. The only thing I can think of was that we had a regular that was demanding and entitled. Janine enabled her like nuts. Our head bartender actually kicked her out and banned her after she harassed a table for 30 minutes for being, quote, in her spot. The only reason he didn't do it sooner was Janine kept telling him not to. He just got fed up. Janine was mad. She planned to unban the psycho, but thankfully she never came back. Nastiest thing? I can't really pin one down right now, but I did manage to shut her up once. I came into work to find her full-on reorganizing my crap. Again, she said, "Tom said that since this is our station now, that we should make it better for both of us." Spoiler, he never said that. He said he would ask me if we could move a few things to be easier for her to grab. That's it. It turned into another shouting match where she got snippy and said, "He's your boss. That's his name over the door." I'm still so proud of this. Yeah, his name, not yours. Now get out of my station. She was big mad, but walked away when she realized that I wasn't going to back down. Tom watched the whole thing, didn't say a word. Tom later apologized for her behavior and said he'd talk to her. It worked for 2 weeks before she started up again. Edit. I misread part of your question. Yes, we had complaints often, and those were the customers that liked us. 90% of our customer base was 60 plus. They even hosted a wake for one of the longtime customers. One of the most common complaints for stuff from my end of the world was her bloody salad dressings. When I was using mine and Otto's recipes, no complaints. Her recipes, multiple times a night. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not. Otto has tweaked my recipes a lot, but at least mine didn't taste like olive oil and black pepper. Our next story is The Straw That Broke the Camel's Back. I don't know if it happens to you, but in my family, there's always that person who feels entitled to have an opinion on everything. In my case, she's a girl. He always has something to say, that if I gained weight, that if I should dress more feminine, that if at my age I should already have this or that. And he says it like that, smiling as if it were advice, but one feels the poison hidden between the lines. I kept quiet for a long time. I laughed uncomfortably. I changed the subject. I endured the lump in my throat because, well, it's family, isn't it? Until one day I got tired. He looked at me from top to bottom and threw me, "Oh, baby, and when are you going to do something serious with your life?" And it was as if I pressed the last button I had left. I smiled calmly at him, as if my hands didn't tremble inside, and replied, "When you start to respect yours and stop living pending mine." Total silence. I didn't say it screaming. I didn't say it with a scolding. I said it from the boredom. And that day I understood that sometimes setting limits is not disrespectful. It's starting to respect yourself. Yeah, absolutely. People are always going to be judgmental, but it's the ones that vocalize it and just seemingly do it to put other people down. They need to be checked. So, OP, you finally heard enough and you decide to check this guy. Good for you. Our next story is, I guess Hillary Clinton was right. It does take a village to raise a child. This is an old story, about 25 years old. Back in the late 90s, I spent a few summers adopting my sister's kid for a week or two. I'd drive back to Maine, pick him up, drive him to Boston, and we'd do whatever he wanted. Red Sox games, whale watching, duck boat tour, his favorite, and the New England Aquarium/Museum of Science. He was shy and quiet, and when he'd had enough, we'd just relax and play video games or read comic books. He's a good kid, but mildly autistic. He was very shy. One summer, he was obsessed with visiting Six Flags in Massachusetts, so I drove out there for the day, and we hit all the rides we could. The lines were long. This was August, so we had to spend 30 to 45 minutes in line. There were a number of church/youth groups en masse there. This was obvious because these groups would all be wearing the same color scheme. Yellow shirt and red lettering, blue shirt with white lettering, that kind of thing. You'd see these color-schemed groups all around the park, like gangs or something. We got in line for some ride or another, and within 20 minutes, these two kids, about 20 people forward of us in line, began causing a ruckus. They were wearing the colors, white on green if I recall correctly, of some inner-city church/youth group from New Haven, Connecticut. And they were a pain in the butt. The way 12 to 13-year-old boys behave when there are no adults around. Multiple people tried to shush them, but they knew they were free of authority and only began acting up more. The teenage ride operators couldn't be bothered to straighten them out, and the two got more and more obnoxious. I'd had enough. I looked, 2 rows away, at the people walking back and forth and waited for any green and white elders walking by. And within 5 minutes, there were 2. I shamelessly cut my hands and yelled, "Excuse me!" My nephew was mortified, but I kept yelling until I got their attention. A few in the crowd waved, which helped, and they walked over and I asked them, "Are these 2 yours?" pointing at the 2 troublemakers. Of course, almost the entire line had my attention at this point. The couple said, "Yes, we know them. What did they do?" I said, "Well, honestly, they've been misbehaving since they got into line, pushing each other, clowning around, trying to cut into the other rows, just generally being a nuisance. We've all been trying to shush them, but they just keep ignoring everyone and just keep acting up." The couple glared at the 2 boys and asked if that was true. The boys said no, but almost immediately, the entire crowd came down on them for their behavior. The church/youth group elders dragged their butts out of the line, past everyone. The boys were set to board the ride on the next load, or the one after, but now they had completely lost their place in line. I only saw them twice more. Once, they were sitting between the elders on a bench outside the Tilt-A-Whirl or something, humbly eating their bag lunch. And the other, they were waiting in line for some crappy kids ride, again waiting between the 2 elders. I'd like to think I ruined the rest of their day at Six Flags. We drove by them boarding their bus as we exited, but I didn't see the 2 troublemakers. Well, good on the church staff for holding these kids accountable, taking responsibility, and basically babysitting them for the rest of the time. Look, I was a 12 to 13-year-old boy once, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't have done the same stupid crap back then, but I can totally understand how that can be annoying for like families and other people trying to enjoy the park. So good for the staff for stepping up and handling that. Tico Soon commented, "I love it. On the flip side, I was at a play center with my kids when they were little. Slides, ball pits, you know the drill. My youngest got kinda knocked around by these 2 boys from a church group who weren't being malicious, just careless, rambunctious kids. But there was a 3rd kid who got in their path and helped my kid to and out of the ball pit, let him go down the slide first, etc. I found one of the leaders and told him about the 3rd kid being so kind to my kid, and he grinned and called the kid over. The kid looked terrified. 'Do you know why I've called you?' I've panicked. 'No, I swear, I was trying to help, I promise.' 'Yes, I know. This woman just told me all about you helping her child in the climbing areas. Do you remember our Sunday school lesson? What was the topic? Being kind even when no one is watching you?' 'Yes, and you showed that perfectly. Now, you were so kind to that child who was smaller than you, but you didn't even know you were being watched. Here's a whole bag of game tokens for you as a reward.' That kid's face lit up like a Christmas tree. Sweetest thing ever. Our next story is, 'That's my seat, revered elder.' Context: our trains are always overcrowded. Almost every time, if you're boarding late or boarding from a station other than the first station, you'll find someone who's bought a standing ticket sitting on your reservation. You'll have to force them out in order to sit through the journey. The seats are also designed poorly, as people having seats next to each other have to share the handrest between them. There are 2 seats in a row, the corridor seat and the window seat. Window seats have large space available, while the corridor seat is a bit crampy and uncomfortable. However, the journey can be comfortable for both if the window seat passenger makes a bit of space for the corridor seat passenger. Now to the story. I, 35-year-old male, had a window seat. A boy, 10-year-old male, sat next to me in a corridor seat. I vaguely remember looking around for his guardian, but nobody was interacting with him. I didn't realize that the seat wasn't the boy's until someone, about a 50-year-old male, came along and told me that the corridor seat number was his. I initially thought he needed assistance to find his seat, so I looked up and told him that yeah, the corridor seat was his. He told me, rather rudely, that,
"I know that seat is mine. Why are you telling me that? I'm asking you to vacate my seat."
I was astonished by his rudeness, so I told him, "Why would I vacate your seat? Am I sitting on it?" He asked me,
"This child is not with you?"
"No."
"Whose child is it then?"
"How would I know?" He asked the boy to leave, which the boy did promptly. While sitting beside me, the man mumbled something like,
"That's your child."
No apologies, nothing. He then proceeded to take the whole shared armrest. Okay, fine, I didn't need it, but I was waiting for, "Yo, revered elder, keep your seat, don't come into mine."
"Hey, can't I use the armrest?"
"Sure you can, but your elbow is almost touching my ribs. Keep to yourself." He couldn't find fault in my logic, so he went after my sarcastic use of revered elder.
"Do I look elderly?"
"Seems so."
"You think you're young?"
"Mm-hmm." I didn't respond further. To his credit, he didn't bother me and kept to himself in his cramped space for the rest of the journey. Grumpy old man, I am all about respecting the elderly, but respect is also earned just by setting a good example and being a good human being. So, with him being mean and rude to children, he kind of deserved to get ripped here. No pun intended. Our next story is about the frogs. A few years ago, the other half and I lived with one of his family members. Think 60s, feral, and always complained about women. She also made herself out to be a tough country woman who could do anything. I didn't think too much of it at the time. Over time, we found out that she would go above and beyond to make up horrible things about me to the family. She had one massive fear, which was frogs. They terrified her, even pictures of them. When we were planning on moving out, and I was still friends with her on social media, I changed everything to frogs and regularly posted about them. I went from posting maybe once every few weeks about random stuff to flooding my feed with frogs. It looked like I was obsessed with them. It was brilliant knowing that this person who said the most horrible things about me and almost ruined my relationships with my in-laws was terrified when my page came up on her feed. We ended up moving out, blocked her, and magically my obsession with frogs stopped. Okay, yeah, random, worth a chuckle, funny, thank you for sharing. Our next story is, I'm still house-sitting my friend's cats and the madness has not stopped. If you saw my last post, you already know I've been trapped in a house ruled by 2 cats. Luna, the silent judge, Betty, the fridge-screaming goblin. Just here to confirm they're still unhinged. Luna stares at me like I'm trespassing. Betty screams at furniture, attacks shadows, and runs full speed into walls at 3 a.m. So I've gone petty. Revenge update. I reprogrammed their auto feeder to go off 5 minutes later than usual, just enough to mess with them. Betty's furious. Luna's filed a mental complaint. More sticky notes have been added. This is a shared space, Luna. Betty, the sock wasn't attacking you. This corner now belongs to me. Deal with it. Owner's back soon. I'm leaving the notes and moved Luna's cushion half an inch. She's been staring at it like it's personal. Cats are smart, man. Cats are smart. I feel like if they could speak our language, they would just give us all kinds of secrets about the inner workings of the universe. I put them somewhere, replied. My friend's cat hates me, so I started leaving passive-aggressive notes around the house. Every time I stay over at my mate's house, his cat acts like she pays rent and I'm the intruder. She watches me sleep, she knocks over my bag, she hisses when I breathe too loud. So I started leaving her notes. Proper passive-aggressive roommate energy. We get it, you're fluffy and bitter. Stop watching me sleep, it's weird. The butter in the fridge? I saw you lick it. We're not cool. You're not the main character, you're just a cat. I've been sliding these notes under her food bowl and leaving them on the sofa. She hasn't changed, but she blinks slower now. Might be a truce forming, or a threat. Either way, I'm not backing down. Update. My friend's cat still hates me, so I escalated the note war. Now it's personal. Since my last post, nothing's changed, except now it's open warfare. The cat still eyes me like I sold its siblings on Facebook Marketplace. Full-on death stare. Every time I visit, it parks itself in the hallway like a tiny bouncer deciding if I'm allowed in. So then it peed in my shoe. So yeah, I escalated. Replaced the notes with formal eviction letters addressed to Mr. Milo, feline resident. Hung a framed photo of a golden retriever in the hallway. Renamed the Netflix profile to Definitely Not for Cats. Created a fake Tinder profile, Milo, 6. Hobbies include glaring, casual vandalism, and emotional manipulation. My friend says I need therapy. I say I need justice. I haven't seen the cat in 2 days. I think he's plotting something. If I don't post again, avenge me. Walter Falls replied, had an idiot of a cat once, gifted to me by a friend. My friend's marketing career undoubtedly peaked with his PR campaign to me and his girlfriend along the lines of, give this cat its best life. To his girlfriend, the marketing featured promises of unfettered and frequent travel to exotic destinations. Targeting me were convincing arguments that this show quality was the beautiful, furry cure for loneliness in a new city. Well, that cat hated men with a fury rivaled only by uber-militant lesbians, and was always wrecking the love vibes for my friend. The flat-faced, snaggletooth, orange Persian freaker was evil. As soon as I went to work, it started playing his game of guerrilla warfare. It would find the best place to hide its mines, turds, and then wait for my arrival back home. Then it would perch on the railing of the stairs and watch me play scratch and sniff sapper, hunting its stinking bouncing betties. The malicious glee with which he peered down at me while I was on these fearful search and destroy missions was peak Viet Cong. It would pull my stuff aside, crap in the hole, and then recover it. Notable locations were under the sofa cushions, inside bed pillow covers, in the toes of my shoes, behind the refrigerator, and in my washing machine. Sometimes it would just leave a pile on inside the front door to distract me from the booby trap somewhere else. After a few weeks of unsuccessfully trying to return this monster to my friend, no backsies, it went to the shelter. Life is short and idiots can come on little cat's feet. And OP replied to this, mate, that wasn't a cat. That was a psychological operations unit with whiskers. Decoy turds, strategic hiding spots, surveillance from the stairs. That orange Persian didn't hate men, he hated hope. He wasn't pooping, he was planting messages. And every one of them said, you don't live here, I do. Honestly, the fact he recovered the mines like he was in MI6, that's not evil, that's elite. Scary, but elite. Okay, everybody, that is all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and comment down below. And if you want to check out any of our other videos, click the video on the right. Now then, I will see you all next time.